Gentlemen, anyone notice anything peculiar about Seaman First Class Urban?
Toll road, get him up. Trench?
Oh, this is embarrassing.
Yeah, sure is.
But being a Gemini, I just never know what to expect.
I don't have to worry about that being a Libra, so getting arrows shot into my side or anything.
I'm Mark.
I'm Tom.
And we are the
Cinemaniacs.
So, a Kentucky Fried Movie.
Wonderful.
Wonderful film.
Clearly one of the 10 best. My son and I will occasionally just be sitting around and try to list what are the 10 greatest comedies of all, all of those. And I think it's got to be in the top 5.
I don't think it's terribly well known amongst the general public.
Really?
I don't think so. I think for the Zucker movies, it's Airplane and it's Naked Gun. And a lot of people don't know about Top Secret, and they should.
And I don't think a lot of people really know Naked Gun.
Really?
Airplane is clearly, though.
It's funny because I brought this up because I was at the Alamo Drafthouse Yonkers last weekend, and they ran all 3 Naked Gun movies in a row on film on the big screen. Okay. Not a sold-out crowd, but pretty darn close, several hundred people. And it's wonderful to see those on the big screen again. Well, to see 2 out of the 3 of them on the big screen again with people laughing so hard they cover up lines. And Naked Gun 2.5, when I saw it in the theater, I was the only person who laughed at the Twilight Zone to Serve Man reference that's in that movie.
Yep.
And then seeing it this time, to hear a whole theater full of people laugh at it, it's like that joke finally got its moment 20, 30 years later. Anyway, we're not here to talk about the Naked Gun movies.
We could, but
maybe we would rather.
Other things, I would certainly rather.
In lieu of talking
given
about
this week's
some of these
lineup,
let's talk about movies we do like. Should I start?
If you want to, really.
Well, do it. You want to toss for it? Hi, how are you? So, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is back once again on your big screen to deal with fantastical beasts and creatures and things that go roar in the night when his good friend and albino gorilla is juiced by a meteorite. Things go awry, and things go on a bit of a rampage.
To equal the crisp, delicious flavor of hot popcorn that's bathed in real melted butter.
Oh boy.
I'm waiting for Burger Time myself.
Burger Time the movie, right, yeah.
Perhaps Dig Dug, the Mr. Do movie. Oh boy. With Chris Hemsworth. You're not going to believe it. Basically, he's about a magic bowler who dresses as a clown.
Exactly.
It's fantastic.
Fights crime.
It fights crime and wins the love of a good woman. So apparently this is based on an arcade game.
Yes.
From the 80s.
I played it and computer on computer at least.
I've been told this is a video game. I don't remember this from my arcade years. And movies based on video games, the success rate of those is in the low single digits, I think, as far as it being any good. But I didn't care about that. This is going to be for me a giant monster movie. This is going to be, dare I say,
it's the
another
Rock beating stuff up. Come on.
And Mighty Joe Young. And some other big creatures that they give away. I felt like in the trailer when they give away that there's a second big creature, that was a big mistake.
That's a loss.
In the movie, when I'm watching it, I'm with the movie. I don't want to go in and not like it. So I go in and they show you these meteorites or parts of a satellite. I don't remember exactly what it was. Parts of a satellite, I think, are landing in various parts of the world and creating these mutated creatures. Only one in each case where something lands. And when the third one lands, they're not overt about it, but I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun because I see what this thing is going to be when it shows up later in the film. So here's the deal for me. When there was monster action in this movie, it was kind of fun and cute and clever and bodies flying through the air and somebody, one of these creatures snatching a helicopter out of the air and throwing it at a tank, or maybe it was taking a tank and throwing it at a helicopter. It was just crazy carnage. There's like maybe 20 minutes of that in this movie.
Well, and didn't we see that like 6 months ago with Kong Skull Island?
Kinda. And well, not that you could really see what was going on in that movie,
well, that's true.
Or not well enough. So this movie, as far as how it presents its action, it presents it rather well. But all of the human stuff, which is 95% of the movie, I was bored. I mean, I was like starting to get annoyed because You know, I love old monster movies, and I'm not putting this in any higher category than those things were, but you have a movie like The Deadly Mantis. You have a movie like The Giant Behemoth. You have a movie like, God, The Monolith Monsters. Them, whatever. It can't just be monsters. That gets boring.
Right.
The Godzilla movies as well. But you have to have something in that downtime. And here, the dialogue was awful. Like, it was bad. I was watching this, I'm like, is this supposed to be funny? I don't think it is. And when it is supposed to be funny, these one-liners, they're 100% not funny. And the whole movie felt like it was written by like a non-artistic, disinterested 12-year-old, where you're like, here are the plot points you have to hit. Just write something down, and we'll change it later. And they didn't change it later.
They forgot.
So I was so bored and just, oh boy, this was really terrible. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, super likable guy.
Yep.
Amazingly charismatic. In real life, seems to be like a really decent guy. So there's a lot of goodwill. I think he makes one good movie for every 50 movies, every other movie he makes.
I wouldn't be that harsh.
I think he makes bad movies.
Yeah.
And I yearn for, there was a movie he made called Faster that I thought was really good.
Okay.
Not associated with that stupid car franchise, but it was like a good, serious, like, guy getting out of prison, going on a revenge trip kind of movie. And he's done a couple things. The Jumanji movie was fun, but he makes just these stupid movies. But because he's so likable and people like him, they keep going and paying to see them, which sends a message to Hollywood, ooh, make more of these kind of movies. And my analogy, I've been thinking about this a lot over the weekend. My analogy is McDonald's. You go to McDonald's and buy their food because you like Ronald McDonald. And no, this is an equivalent.
Okay, right.
I go to see all of The Rock's movies. They're crap, but I like him, so I pay anyway. And they keep making more of that. Well, what do you say if you went to McDonald's and they had food that was pretty bad, but you bought it anyway because you like Ronald McDonald? Or maybe you only bought like the good food they have, and then that way that would induce them to create more good food like that, as opposed to just serving garbage. You know,
You're losing me on
Am
this
I losing
one,
you? I'm just saying.
But that's okay.
Everybody goes to see The Rock's movies because they like him,
Right.
and the movies are mostly bad. And maybe you could hold back a little and just see the ones that are good, and then we would have more good movies.
As a consumer,
and
I see.
it would steer him in a direction toward making good movies instead of just giant CGI things that are pretty lame.
Right.
Anyway, I didn't like Rampage.
I sure didn't either, for all the reasons that you mentioned. I didn't think, I thought the CG was okay, but I'd seen it all before. I went into this thinking, as you say, Mighty Joe Young, see, The Rock is texting me right now. Mighty Joe Young, we saw Kong Skull Island. So I've seen all these things before, and I'm just kind of wondering what's going to be new. I thought the effects were okay, but as you say, there weren't a lot of them. I like The Rock. I think you're a little harsh on him. He wasn't in it a lot, but the other guys was really funny. He's done a couple with I mean, even Jumanji was okay. So I thought he'd been going along pretty well, and this was just bad. I don't expect Laurence Olivier out of him.
Oh, no, me either.
He's no huge, great actor, but he is charismatic, and he was almost a parody of himself in this. And I think this was direction, but he sure got enough creative control that he could have stopped the thing. So yeah, I thought Rampage was a big waste of time.
Oy. So was that...
I wouldn't have even gone to see this a second time if you dared me.
Oh, did
Okay,
you?
sorry
Is that the truth?
I was hoping he'd jump in.
I was
something
a little
else
late
like
on
that.
that. Sorry.
But as the case might happen to be, if you're a group of kids, young adults, let's say, down in Mexico, what are you looking for down in Mexico? I don't quite know. They're not really looking for like real solid weed or anything like that. Just to have a good old time. The last time, because they're all going to be split up pretty soon. You come across a little mystical place, and you want to play some games and stuff like that. The one game you don't want to play, because after you leave Mexico, it's coming after you. And take a truth or dare. So normally I'd hit into something like that. I like horror movies, as I know you do. So normally I'd hit into this thinking, well, okay, it's nothing super clever, just make something kind of interesting and unique. But this is from the people who did Happy Death Day, which was possibly my favorite movie of last year.
It was fun.
Because it was so darn clever.
And that's what I was going into that movie. I thought
Yeah.
this is going to be lame.
Yes.
And it wasn't.
Right. And so I went into this thinking, hey, great, you're going to take this kind of campy, stupid idea and give me some real twists and turns and something really clever. And this was not there. Performances are okay. They're the traditional characteristic college students. You've got, there was just nothing clever enough here. I was hoping The whole concept is they are on this Mexican site, and it was cursed, and so there's a demon that is going to make everybody smile, the Joker smile, and either ask you for a truth or a dare. Now, as we find out, the truth, you have to tell the truth, and people lose friends and stuff like that. Or the dare is usually something that's either pretty difficult to do, and if you don't do it, they kill you. So, as to steal a little of your thunder that we talked about beforehand, while the trailer was going on, you might think, well, and part of the fun of these kinds of movies is us putting ourselves in those situations and figuring out, what would I do? So obviously the thing you'd say is, well, just say truth. And oops, I'm sorry, Mark, if you find out that I killed your dog when you were 8 years old, you'll be mad at me, but I'm okay.
Ultimately, it simplifies your life.
Right, absolutely, yeah. You get some stuff off your chest. But there's a somewhat clever little twist to that makes it a little bit interesting. But what I was hoping for was the dares that this omnipotent demon makes you do are going to be clever or fun to watch or something like that. And this was just pretty amateur and run-of-the-mill.
Yeah, I thought this wasn't very good. Yeah. This is, again, it seems weird to say I love horror movies. I don't like most of them, but I love them. I always have hope in dreams and spirits and sparkles in my eyes when I go into one of these things. So it's a cast of characters that I want dead before they even get to Mexico. They get in the car, and I'm like, the car's going to blow up and kill them all now,
Please.
right? This is like this is a featurette, right? Because I just hate them all. And they play the game, and nobody is very interesting. Everybody is kind of douchey for the most part. I mean, there's the good girl, but even she, whatever.
She's annoying.
There's a lot of back and forth, plot-wise, of sort of repetition in the film. I didn't find it ever scary. It's supposed to be scary when the demon is possessing somebody and telling them what the truth or dare is. They have this Joker smile. And I'm like, were they huffing Smilex down in Mexico or something? It's not scary. It's funny.
Yeah.
And it's not supposed to be funny. And there was a line in the film where they refer to it as a Snapchat filter, which is what it looks like.
Yeah.
And I feel like, oh, that had to be something they put in ADR afterwards, because they tested this movie and people were like, that looks silly. Where are the puppy dog ears and the nose? So it wasn't scary in the least bit to me. It was gruesome a couple times, but I'm not a guy who poo-poos PG-13 horror and just writes it off. Some people are like, it has to be gory to be horror. I'm like, no, it has to be good.
Quiet Place is PG-13?
Quiet Place
The
has ruined
Insidious
everything that I've seen after that, because it's like, okay, that was no money,
Here's
hardly
what you
any
can do.
actors, and you did an amazingly frightening job. So yeah, this movie, it shies away from the gore, but the problem here is that it keeps setting up payoffs that you don't see.
Right.
So somebody does something that should be gross, and they cut away from it, and you're like, well, then there's not a lot of point to this. It's like if it was a sex comedy, but every time somebody was like, I'm going to get some now, cut to later that day. I'm like, wait a minute, this is what I'm here for.
Yeah, wait a minute.
So yeah, I thought Truth or Dare was really lame. I think this is the kind of thing that teenagers or those who are not terribly discerning will probably like.
Yeah.
Apparently it's been doing pretty well at Keen Cinemas from what I was told, but again, after seeing A Quiet Place and seeing it done so well, to see it done so half-assedly, I was like...
One strange comment, for some reason, I like to try to say something nice about some things, and maybe this will get back to him, but there's one character in this who he gets a truth, and his truth is that he's forced to come out to his father, who was a local police officer. And for some reason, I thought the police officer was terrific. I just really, he's in it for like 2 minutes, but I just thought he was really disingenuous and just really likable and believable. And so I have a character that I like at least.
Well, we all have something.
Maybe we'll see him in Truth or Dare again. I don't know.
At least you didn't go like way over. I don't know. Next movie up,
who knows? Yes,
is we have a remake. The rare occasion of a remake these days. Remake of a film from 1987 that you may or may not know and love, involving a working class person and a rich person, and one of those people gets amnesia and makes the other person think that they're married so that they can get a little bit more out of life. This time it's a wacky gender-bending role reversal. Anna Faris stars in Overboard.
Show starts in 8 minutes. Yum, yum.
So that we are presenting to you
Yes.
as informational.
Saw the original with Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn.
I've actually never seen it.
Oh, really? It's fun.
It has a huge following. It never looked interesting to me. I'll watch it someday.
Right.
But I never saw that, and when I heard there was a remake, I was like, But you know the original still exists, right?
Well, that's what a
people
strange...
who love that don't want to see a remake, and people who haven't seen the original, the name that's not going to mean anything to them.
Right.
But anyway.
Just kind of a strange choice with it. My understanding is that for those of you who are familiar with the original, in the original one, Kurt Russell Goldie Hawn is the one who falls over and gets amnesia. And here's the clever twist: they switch it this time.
Oh.
And Anna Faris gets to take control of the guy and make him do bad things and be her servant.
Well, I hope that was worth the eventual financial loss that
must
studio's going to
ultimately
have.
be it. We've discussed it a little bit earlier, but coming to the Latches Theater in Brattleboro, already there. We just wanted to let you know. A comedy that's really making the rounds, and people are liking it a lot. Tough things going on in the Soviet Union after the loss of one of their most cherished iron-fisted dictators. What are you going to do when you're in a communist country after the death of Stalin?
To equal the crisp, delicious flavor of hot popcorn that's bathed in real melted butter.
Well, for a comedic analysis of the trailer, we're going to ask our compatriot Rick Blood to come on out, because he seemed to be enjoying it quite a bit as we were screening this. Don't know about that. I haven't seen this. I've heard really good things about it. It looks very funny. But right now, you really kind of have to search it out. As I said, it's on at the Latches Theater in Brattleboro, our sponsors, so we thank them for having that available. I think it's going to be coming a little bit more local, particularly here in Keene, to a couple of places. But again, everybody I've talked to, and I just didn't have a chance to see this. I'm planning on seeing it this week, so maybe next week we'll talk about it. Death of Stalin is supposed to be really, really clever.
I've heard nothing but good things, and I did just read that it's coming to the Colonial Theater here in Keene for those who are local, so it will be, I don't know when, but it will be here relatively soon. That's probably when I'm going to see it, simply because my week is busy this week watching the remainder of the Ernest films. So that's all that we have to talk about in theaters currently, that we saw in theaters currently, and we thank our friends, as he said, at the Latches Theater in Brattleboro, Vermont, for sponsoring this program. And now we move on to that which is available in your home or in the field, on the road, on the device, format, streaming service, or media of your choice. First up is a film we talked about in theaters, a very well-regarded film.
Hooray.
Oscar-winning, nominated certainly film. Hugh Jackman is back on screen just singing and dancing up a storm as P.T. Barnum, and the tale of how P.T. Barnum rose to power with a song in his heart and a dance on his tap shoe in the film entitled The Greatest Showman.
Tender, too. So make Sunbeam bread your favorite choice.
This was really good. I thought.
What a surprise.
This was one that we saw in the theater for this fine program. And I went in thinking, oh, this is going to be cheesy. It's going to be the kind of modern show-tuney stuff I don't like, and it's going to be really fluffy. And it wasn't. Hugh Jackman is great. I say he is the modern Gene Kelly, because he can act, he can sing, he can dance, he can do drama, he can do comedy.
And he can slit people open with big razors.
Snickety snick. You know, you don't want to make him angry in this film. So it's the story of P.T. Barnum, relatively close to the truth from what I've read. They were, as often is the case in Hollywood, they were very, very generous in the casting of Barnum.
Oh, is that right?
I'm thinking... I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but there's another actor.
Charles Lawton.
He started Walk Hard. Who am I thinking of?
Walk Hard?
He was in, oh boy, he was in Boogie Nights.
Oh, the C. Reilly?
John C. Reilly.
John C. Reilly, yeah.
It's probably a lot closer to what accurate casting
than Hugh Jackman.
Than Hugh Jackman for Barnum, but you know, hey. So it's the story of him striking out on his own in the world, putting together, you know, the circus, the freak show, whatever, in London, and taking it, you know, where it ultimately wound up. And there's a lot of musical numbers, very, very well staged musical numbers. Like I always go back to, there's this, Zac Efron is in it, and he's really good in this. He plays sort of this guy who goes into business as sort of the partner in this endeavor. And the sequence where Barnum convinces this other guy to be his partner in a bar room where it's just the two of them and the bartender is like something out of a Gene Kelly or a Fred Astaire movie.
Yeah.
The choreography, the moving props around. I'm watching this and I'm like, this is like a Jackie Chan movie. This is fantastic. And I'm like, and that's because Jackie Chan movies were based on Fred Astaire movies and Gene Kelly type stuff. So it all swirls around in my head. But very, very catchy songs, one of which was Oscar nominated and very entertaining. Nice, heartfelt performances by the various people in the circus. There's a great sequence where you see Barnum. They don't really push. What's funny is that Barnum is this kind, loving man who gives a home to people of all different types and shows them that they all have magic in them and all that. And at the end, there's this quote on screen that makes you get a tear in your eye, saying, you know, everyone has value or something like that. And I'm like, and after that, it should fade up there where it says there's a sucker born every minute. But they they don't focus on that Barnum too much. But there's a sequence where he's amassing the people, and just a great moment where the fat guy, the large man, whatever you call him in a circus, comes up, and he's like, "So how much do you weigh?" And the guy says something like 500 pounds, and he's like, 600 pounds. Wow, nobody is going to imagine that anybody who's 700 pounds could be on a stage. And that little thing like that, I'm like, oh, that's great. It's the grift. So I thoroughly enjoyed this. This was, I think, boy, was it rated anything harder than a PG. I can't imagine it was.
Yeah,
there's no language. There's nothing objectionable in this at all. So this is like an ideal, as we like to say, a family film where everybody can watch it and not roll their eyes because it's beneath them intellectually, I think. And yeah, this was. We don't see a lot of musicals other than the Disney movies, but I would say this is the best musical I've seen in recent memory.
Yeah, this was a big surprise for me. I like Jackman. Obviously, we know that he's a talented musician and singer and dancer because we've seen him in many other things. But I was really kind of surprised, although in retrospect I shouldn't have been, that the musical approach to this. When I heard about The Greatest Showman, I was thinking, oh, okay, that'll be interesting. And then I found out there's singing and dancing. It's a musical number. How strange. But you're right that they're just loads of fun to watch. I can't dance to save myself, and I so enjoy watching people dance. You're right that Zac Efron is really loads of fun, and I've always known Jackman has been. But every now and then I get this strange sensation as I'm watching stuff that... And I made reference to it, strangely enough. I'll keep using the word strange because I'm rather strange about being strange. With the Medea movies, is that the people seem to be having so much fun making them. And that's another one that I felt with this, is everybody seemed to be having such a great time making it that I just enjoyed it that much more. Going to head out after this show and pick up, I'm hoping for all the world that it's in 4K, because this is one that I want to own. I enjoyed it so much.
It looked so good. Now, at home, you won't get this so much unless you have a giant TV. But on the big screen, they're like this theater in the round or whatever it was that he had, you kind of felt like you were there. The way they shot it, it was just, so the scale is really important. So again, you know, too late if you didn't see it in the theater. But so speaking of poker.
Now, needing to make money, you know, you can't fault Barnum for wanting to make a lot of money. We all kind of do. But if you're an Olympic skier and you need to come up with some dough, one thing they might do is, as he makes reference, how poker would be a good way to get it. Get lots of really rich people out in L.A., and if you're one of those people who has lots of money to either spend or lose, you might want to chip in and join Molly's game.
Our favorite choice. Eat Sunbeam, the bread you need for energy.
So loads of big names in this. What a strange! I went into this thinking, you know, what a strange movie to make and concept about a woman running a poker game. But it was really very interesting, learning all of the backstory about a lot of the people, a lot of named famous people, and sort of alluded to famous people entering this super high stakes poker game. One of the things, and you don't obviously have to know about poker. One of the things that I tell my students, for those of you who are new to the show, I'm a film professor, is, well, boy, don't make the story about important to play poker because you immediately alienate anybody who doesn't play poker. And, you know, why do I want to see a movie about that? It's not about that, clearly. It's about her interactions and what's going on in her life. I thought performances were really, really solid, and it looked really slick. So Molly's Game, it's actually been both for the last one we talked about and this one, and the next one we're going to discuss, a good week on video.
It's funny, this was one that played, again, locally here at the Colonial for a week, but it did not seem to have a very wide release.
No.
And it's always, that's the kind of thing that makes me curious with a raised eyebrow when you see the talent involved, and it's like, this kind of came and went pretty fast. But from everything I've heard, it is quite good, so I do want to see this myself. Speaking of films not starring Kevin Spacey, we have a film about, based on the true life story, super rich man John Paul Getty's grandson is kidnapped, and it is a struggle between the mother of the kidnapped grandson and the grandfather himself as to whether they will give in to get the child back by paying all the money in the world.
3 completely new kinds of Ford cars for 1960.
This looks like a pretty intense thriller here.
Directed by Ridley Scott, which was a surprise. And yeah, you'd think, oh, this is going to be one of those movies where mom's sitting by the phone and somebody calls and says, we want $1 billion or whatever. But it's not. There's a surprising amount of action in this. Christopher Plummer is just terrific. You casually alluded to the fact that the role was originally for Kevin Spacey. And
I believe they shot it with him to a degree.
I didn't know that. I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah.
I knew with, what's the TV show he's on?
House of Cards?
House of Cards, which I started and haven't picked up. I liked it. But my understanding was that they'd started production of the final season of that. And see ya, Kevin. Again, which I'm in no way, shape, or form condoning any of that action, but, you know, he's a fine actor. I always liked him and stuff. But Plummer is riveting. So he was a really good cast to step in and take over on this. It's an interesting topic. They do, you know, Scott's a wonderful director, and he's not going to make it boring for you. But I was really kind of surprised that we saw some of the action scenes in there, about how they threaded that in there, and it really works pretty well. It's an interesting kind of almost, it's certainly a suspenseful, but almost a whodunit kind of a film with some terrific performances.
Speaking of whodunit, Clue was a fine whodunit, wasn't it?
Yes.
As a board game. There's no transition I can do. I'm sorry. If it's okay for me to take this one.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll take this one. So.
The rest are yours, actually.
Oh, hey, it's all me. You can leave. You can feel free to move about the cabin.
See ya.
Feel free to
Pokemon.
keep poking your mon over there.
Hey, wait a minute. Is this on after 10? Sorry.
Anyway, we have a film to discuss. We have several. This is a film shot in and around upstate New York, actually. This is a tawdry tale of what goes on during the War of 1812 in the wilderness, the wooded wilderness, when you have 2 Native Americans and 1 British turncoat, perhaps, who are on the run from a bloodthirsty band of American soldiers. God help you if you cross the Mohawk.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off!
Hi.
And we're back.
Sorry. So this small independent film, it is a, you could almost call it horror. It's more of a drama / thriller where you have these 2 Native Americans and, as I said earlier, and a British person. They meet up in the woods with these American soldiers who want just to eradicate them. And there's a bit of a standoff, and things get violent. And then it's a cat and mouse game back and forth of who will be left standing by the end of this movie. It gets a little fantasy, metaphysical, visionary here and there, but otherwise it's grounded very firmly in reality. And it's a survival tale. I thought it was very intense at times. It held my interest throughout. Quality of acting is uneven. I mean, some is very good. The leads are very good. Some of the peripheral people, some of the cannon fodder, as it were, the musket fodder, a little less so. And the makeup is really good. You see the woman with the eye makeup, the Native American, and the guy with it's very effective in being creepy. A little bit of the shaky cam, which I'm not a fan of. There's a bit too much of that for my taste during some of the moments of excitement or intensity. Okay. But other than that, I thought this was pretty solid. Good score, too, actually.
It's funny that you say that, because I associate the shaky cam with modern stuff. And so for want of a better term, a period piece, I do kind of wonder aesthetically, whether we like it or not, if it would really seem to fit the medium.
To me, it never fits because it takes me out of the movie. It's always used to give the idea of excitement or intensity or whatever, and for me, I just get confused because I can't see what's going on. But there's not a lot of that in this movie. I guess if a movie does it at all, it's too much for me, so take that with a grain or whatever. At any rate, this is out now. It actually came out last week, and I thought it was good. It's a good, survivalist thriller. I would say this is framing it in the wrong sense, but if you like the wrong turn movies or the people out trying to survive and just getting at the other person with whatever they have nearby kind of films, just brutally trying to take care of the other opposing party, then this movie falls into that category. But I'd kick it up a notch into almost a little more of an art house thing because it is a bit more artistic than that. So up next, let me turn the page. Oh, hey, it's the Arrow Video Corner, everybody. My favorite section of the program. And And Tom's trying to see if he can feel the well,
wait!
You know, right in the
Jiminy.
hands. He's got one good one. Are you a right-hander?
I can hit left or right-handed, but I throw right-handed.
So your pitching career is now over.
Yep, I'm on the DL.
So we have a release. It's actually an Arrow Academy release, which is the sublabel they have for the bit more art house, foreign, not just goofy, trashy, fun, wonderful stuff like I like. And this is an early film by, did I write it down? I did not. Well, by the time the clip is done, I'll tell you who directed this. This is an early film from Sam Neill, who we all know from Jurassic Park and The Omen, Damien, The Omen Part 3.
And Tommy's Honor.
And Tommy's, and the illustrious, the critically acclaimed Tommy's Honor. Written by the brother of somebody who's sitting in this room right now. And it tells the tale of a man who's, as Curly would say, a victim of circumstance, who gets swept up with people he barely knows into being on the run from the law, running for his life. And he just didn't let well enough alone those sleeping dogs.
Jane, listen, help me out, will you? Harold hates my coffee. What kind do you use?
I don't know if you just heard that, but it was sleeping dogs. So
he's going to sleep.
It's exactly.
Poor guy.
The narrator was having the same dog tranquilizer.
Was that how exciting it was?
No, it was better than that.
Oh, okay, good.
I didn't love it, but I'd never heard of this movie before, and I love that Arrow brings me these movies that I've never heard of by Sam Neill, who's very well known, and directed by Roger Donaldson, who I couldn't remember before, who did No Way Out and Dante's Peak. He's done a lot of big American movies, but this was a very early film he did over in New Zealand, Australia. So the basic premise is, I don't know my New Zealand 70s history very well, but I guess this was mostly true or an extrapolation of what was going on over there. You had these like revolutionaries, these people who wanted to overthrow the government or wanted to do things in a different way, who were rioting in the streets and bombing things and trying to do nefarious activities. And Sam Neill's character vaguely is associated with one or two of the guys in this group. Like he knows them, but he's not involved. One way or another, something bad happens and it gets pinned on Sam Neill, so he goes on the run. So this is about him being on the run from the law and these revolutionaries trying to connect with him and have him do things for them because he's becoming notorious. And he's trying to live a life and not get caught. So it's vaguely Hitchcockian in that way, where it's, there he is, get him. Wait, I didn't do anything. We don't care, you did it. So there's some decent like slam bang action, like some car chases and some car crashes and some rough and tumble stuff. Some
that
fighting.
still holds up because this is what, 70s?
77. It does for the most part because it was done real. It wasn't animated.
Right.
It wasn't CG, so it looks like there's actual danger and fire and crashes and things. You have a cameo by Warren Oates, who I love.
Yep.
And he shows up and he's like a weird like American Army guy who's just kind of sloppy and cussy, and he's Warren Oates. You know,
he was taking time off from Stripes.
I think it was
same character.
This is Sergeant Hulka before he shaved his head and his lip. So again, this movie for me suffered in ways that Australian films of this era suffer for me, and it's the acting style that doesn't mesh with my taste very well. A lot of the actors are either non-actors or they're like extremely low-key, and the dialogue is forgive the phrase, tossed off very casually and kind of mumbly a lot of the time. So it feels, I guess, on the upside, you could say it feels pseudo-documentary, but to me, it just feels like it's not very dynamic. And some of it isn't shot in the most dynamic way. So I think if you remade this now, it would be this glitzy,
maybe that's why the narrator
thing.
just kind of droned off there.
Is sleeping dog. I thought it should have been called Lie Down with Dogs, because that's more of what this is about. Is this guy is vaguely associated with these people and pays a pretty big price by the end of the movie for it. So being that it's an Arrow release, this looks fantastic. It looks like it was shot yesterday. It has a ton of extras. It's got a commentary with the director and Sam Neill and somebody else, maybe another actor. It's got a vintage making of that's a half hour that was shot while they were making the movie. It's got a more recent 2004, I think, making of that's like an hour long. So I think in New Zealand, this is a renowned film. I think this is a movie that it might have gotten maybe a video release over here, but I'd never heard of it until it came out. So I'd say it's worth taking a shot on. I don't know if it's worth taking a $30 shot on to buy it, but it's certainly worth watching. And I liked it for what it was, but this isn't one that I would recommend to anybody. And it isn't one that I think I would probably bother to watch again, but it was interesting and at times exciting. So that's Arrow. Now we move on to VCI, who we also are getting things from on occasion. And this, did you want to do this one?
No, that's fine.
Oh,
I didn't get a chance to see this one, but
okay.
it looks really interesting. I have no idea what it's if it's really any good, and he'll tell us. But it looks really interesting. Beautiful black and white. I love black and white photography, and I don't know how I missed this in theaters when I was growing up.
This is a film from 1960. Stars Christopher Lee and some faces that you might find familiar if you like British horror. And well, it was a small country. If you watch anything British in the 60s, you're going to see the same like 30 people over and over again. I learned that watching The Avengers. I'm like, hey, it's Roy Kinnear for the third time playing a different guy. So we have Massachusetts, way back in the witch trial days, and a woman is burned as a witch, but not before, so she curses this town to suffer a terrible fate in the future. So now we come to the future, and Christopher Lee is teaching a course on witchcraft, and one of his students decides to pay a visit to this legendary town and find out what really happened or do some research or whatever. And this girl, unfortunately, finds out that she is not merely going to a small New England town, she is also going to the city of the dead.
Every cup tastes good as fresh perked.
Because it is fresh perked.
Oh, I like it better.
Looks beautiful.
This looks so good. I mean, this is a movie that is also known as Horror Hotel, and it has bounced around in theoretically PD status for a long time. So a lot of people have released this over the years. But this is, you know, from the elements, it looks gorgeous. It reminds me a lot of Bava's Black Sunday and how it looks and some of the imagery in it. So, as I was saying earlier, this college student goes to this town to, you know, investigate, and the place is it's always nighttime. It's always shrouded in fog. It's all shot on a set, and it has this weird, it's kind of dreamlike, like nightmarish quality to it. It's a very quiet film. The acting is a little odd, and it's just super creepy and just gorgeous to look at. Now, as somebody who is bothered by Fomericains in modern cinema and bad British people doing bad American accents, this film is loaded with it. And you see Christopher Lee, and it's laughable to me when it's like, she will be going there to discover some witches. I'm like, ugh. People can be British professors, can't they?
Right, sure. What's wrong?
So there's a little of that, which I find amusing, but it's gruesome at times, not explicit, but gruesome for the era. But it looks just so darn good. This was produced by Milton Subotsky, who went on to form Amicus not very long after this, which was known for, they were like, you don't want to say the poor man's Hammer, because I like Amicus a lot. It was just not quite the level of Hammer, and they did a lot of anthology movies. So it's neat to see
Roger Corman of British.
Kind of. Corman. I mean, Corman did the Poe films. Those are gorgeous to look at.
Absolutely.
Cheap but gorgeous. So basically, the big selling point for this is that it's HD and it's a fantastic transfer. There is a commentary by Christopher Lee.
Really?
Funny enough, recorded before he died. And there is an interview.
It would be funny if they recorded it
Yeah,
after.
yeah. There's just a whole lot of Christopher. Christopher. See, the people, you know, an audio recording of a Ouija board session is not that exciting.
Exactly.
And then there's an interview with Christopher Lee on video that was done, you know, obviously again before he died. These may have been done for the DVD release, or they might have even been done for a deluxe. The video might have been done for a deluxe VHS release, because VCI has put this out over and over the years, always upgrading it. And then you have the trailer. Now, this is where I go on my beef with VCI again. It benefits people watching this show, because the trailer on this is actually, they took their new print and they recut it along to the original trailer. So you get the audio from the trailer with whatever voiceover there was. But all the titles are newly generated video titles, starting to look like it. And it always looks cheesy to me. But for what we just did on the show, we were able to use a trailer that exactly shows you what this looks like, as opposed to a beat-up old doopy VHS trailer. So that was kind of cool. So anyway, if you like old horror movies and old spooky movies that aren't explicit and that are fun for the whole family, especially the witch burning scene, I would highly recommend City of the Dead. So that's all we have to discuss this week, with 2 minutes to spare.
And it's amazing.
Next week, we probably have Super Troopers 2.
Okay.
And
aren't you dying for that? Haven't you been waiting for that?
Well, you know, I liked the first Super Troopers.
I liked the first one.
And the trailer looks funny for the second one.
Okay.
So it's hopeful.
Yep.
And Trully, I don't even know what that is. Trully?
Trully.
Not sure. So it'll be a mystery. We hope you join us for the mystery titles next week. Until then, I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are
the Cinemaniacs.